I make videos on fasting because fasting saved my life from high blood pressure. Amazingly, it did so before I even lost very much weight, and this set me down the path of learning everything possible about fasting, which I find completely fascinating. I understand many people have various fears about fasting, and unfortunately a lot of influencers are dead set against fasting. So are most doctors, even though they will routinely fast 90-year-old frail cancer patients just so they can take some stupid and unnecessary test. I like to infuse my videos with both personal experience and experimental data. In this case, that's a bit hard because I am not a woman, but I do personally know a woman who has helped with hot flashes by fasting. So in light of this, and because some have requested it, I'm going to make the video, even though some have said I can't possibly know about the subject, not being a woman.
Sir, you have no call to get snippy with me. I'm just doing my job here.
I'm not arguing here. I'm cooperating. And we're doing all we can.
Sick, he's fleeing the interview. He's fleeing the interview.
Bro science is a very common term for the unproven ideas that have made their way into the fitness industry, and people tend to stick to a lot of these ideas just because some 80s or 90s bodybuilder did it. Things like the calories in, calories out slogan, the need for runners to eat carbs constantly, and the stupid chicken and rice diet for bodybuilding are very good examples. No matter how anti-scientific or even totally disproven these ideas are, they're just intractably etched into the brains of almost everyone in these fields, and this is very common in the fitness industry in particular. I've also found there's a sort of accepted lore about females that's based on who knows what, which I have come to think of as cis science. This is never based on experimental data, and the origin is not even clear. It's just strangely accepted as fact by many people.
It is known.
It is known.
Leave me with her.
One issue that panic mongers throw out about fasting is infertility. The truth is there is no evidence to bear out this claim. In fact, we have a study that shows without a doubt that 72-hour fasts will not affect female fertility whatsoever, and I'll put it on the screen now. And keep in mind, we would have had in nature fasts at least this long several times a year or even more. Well, some might worry that if you did it long term, this would cause issues, though it is hard to do a study where people do 72-hour fasts regularly, as people just don't want to do it. We have animal data where the animals live their whole life doing back-to-back long fasts. The results in every study show that the health was improved at all levels, and no health issues of any kind were detected, and they lived a lot longer. We also have an alternate day fasting study that lasted for 6 months where no one showed any health issues at all. In fact, they lost a lot of fat and didn't lose any lean tissue. But it did not measure anything related to fertility markers. Regardless, fasting tends to lower hormone levels and leads to slight amounts of catabolism, and then it's followed by the creation of brand new tissue and brand new hormones at the end of the fast, so it's going to actually rebalance everything and make you healthier and towards what you're supposed to be at. Fasting also increases telomere length, and it alters Yamanaka factors in stem cells in a way that preserves stemness in the cells. In case it's not clear, this should also lead to human egg cells preserving their viability longer. And if you're interested in this, you should also look at alpha-ketoglutarate, which I have a video on. Proving this would take a long and expensive experiment if we were going to try and do that in humans. So unfortunately, we can only speculate how much this is actually going to help with fertility in particular in practice, but it's certain it's going to help, it's just not clear how much. PCOS is perhaps the main cause of infertility in women today before menopause, and this is a metabolic disease brought about by a garbage diet full of heart-healthy whole grains and all the other garbage foods that people have been convinced into thinking are healthy. A carnivore diet has led many women in their mid-50s to unexpectedly regain their period and to become unplanned parents.
There are a ton of women just going on a keto diet, let alone a carnivore diet, and then a carnivore diet as well. And they haven't conceived in 10 years. And now they're sort of perimenopausal. And all of a sudden they have this late pregnancy as a surprise. That's happened to a few of my friends as well. And this is something we're seeing happen all throughout, the carnivore community. People are, and the keto as well, because keto has been going on for longer and they've had more people involved in it over the last couple of decades. And there are people that go on this ketogenic diet and they're perimenopausal, they're having infrequent periods, then all of a sudden they get regular periods again, and their hormonal health is fixed, and then all of a sudden they're getting pregnant and they're like, what the hell? And like and that's something that is happening because now you're healthy again. You're much more healthy than you thought you were.
This is probably partly because meat is full of real nutrition, particularly vitamin A, which hardly any women today are getting enough of. On the other hand, plant foods have vitamin C and some folate, and they're grown in depleted soil if they're not just grown in plastic mulch like a lot of the strawberries are today. And it has very few minerals in it. And the minerals that do exist in plants are usually locked up in oxalate form. In addition, glucose, fructose, and vitamin C all block nutrient absorption, especially vitamin C, surprisingly. However, most of it probably comes about because of the restoration of metabolic health. Today, over 90% of the population are either type 2 diabetic, pre-diabetic, or moving swiftly towards being a pre-diabetic. That is, they're all metabolically unhealthy. There are even toddlers with type 2 diabetes today, which is due to the terrible diet of not just the children, but also the mothers during pregnancy and even before pregnancy, because that child was originally a cell in the body. Keep that in mind. It didn't appear in that moment. And yet, even though gestational diabetes is a larger and larger problem, the quack diet your doctors push on you is going to have 300 grams of carbs a day, and they'll tell you it's dangerous not to have them. And this is a tremendous amount of carbs even for me, let alone for a small woman. It's just like an incredible amount of carbs. Also note that in spite of the endless propaganda, eating carbs is not something our ancient ancestors did very much of. Even in classical Greece, carb intake was a negligible part of the diet. For about 1 million years before agriculture was invented, the carbs eaten were less than 1% of our diet, as proven by bone isotope analysis. This is less than what an Arctic fox or an Arctic wolf eats today. So this also dispels the myth about carbs and fertility. If that were true, none of us would have been born in the first place. While fasting during pregnancy is a strict no-no because we haven't measured the effects, but they probably aren't good, the rest of the time it will have even more effect on metabolic health than a low-carb diet. This is going to be especially helpful for PCOS. Fasting will also directly reduce excess estrogen by increasing sex hormone binding globulin during the fast. It will also reduce the obesity that causes it, and which leads to PCOS in the first place. Since fasting leads to destruction of cysts and scar tissue through phagocytosis, this is also going to help a great deal with many of the other causes of infertility. Of course, its effect on Yamanaka factors and the stemness of stem cells is going to directly help guarantee the viability of human egg cells. In fact, a lot of women fast in order to increase fertility, and many babies have been born in this way. It just hasn't been looked at yet in an orderly and scientific experimental method, which basically just means it hasn't been carefully documented, so we only have anecdotal data so far. Another baseless claim that drives me bonkers is that fasting will lower thyroid hormone and slow metabolism, while in reality it's a high carb diet, which leads to autoimmune disease, and that's the main cause of Hashimoto's. I do have experimental data to debunk this, and in fact it's the same study as the one showing no issues with fertility. In fact, fasting 72 hours actually raised the thyroid levels. Fasting 72 plus hours regenerates your thyroid, along with all your other organs, due to the growth hormone release. This will raise levels if they are low, but it won't increase them if they're high. It will return your thyroid to a healthier state, whatever it's in short, just like with your gut. It will shrink your gut if it needs to shrink. It'll shrink your skin if it needs to shrink, but it's not going to make it excessively grow. Fasting is the best thing you can do for an autoimmune condition, and that's what thyroid disease almost always really is. While a carnivore diet can relieve the symptoms, it isn't going to reverse them. So if you start eating carbs again, it's all going to come back. Fasting can do this over time by repairing a leaky gut, and also by removing the excess B cells from your body, about half of them from a single 72-hour fast. And this is going to have a dramatic effect on all autoimmune conditions, and the more you do it, the more you're going to help. Fasting 36 to 96 hours also won't damage your metabolism in other ways either. I've talked about fasting and metabolism before, and you can get more detail in those videos. But suffice to say that all hormones will be normalized by fasting. Organs will be regenerated, the metabolism will increase, and generally lean tissue will increase as well. Though on very long fasts of over a week, you're probably going to see a little bit of lean tissue lost over time. And that's why I usually recommend fasts between 36 to 96 hours. Though if you do a bigger one once in a while, it's probably not going to make any real difference in your life. And for the really big problems, you may simply have to do that to get the results you want. You also burn a lot more calories while you fast due to increased adrenaline, which is also the mechanism behind several weight loss medications. It also increases uncoupling proteins in the mitochondria, which causes them to use more energy and burn more fat. And there's a very dangerous weight loss medication that works this way, but you can get it naturally without all the danger just by fasting. Over time, fasting even increases the mitochondria and fat cells, and this is going to permanently increase your basal metabolic rate. In fact, it's one of the only ways you can do that. So no, fasting will not destroy women's metabolism. In fact, it is an essential part of preserving your metabolic health and your basal metabolic rate with age. Fasting is the natural state for humans, and even in modern times, many people are forced to fast from time to time due to scarcity. So this is just a normal part of the human condition, one that we're avoiding today, but in the past we never did. Your body also goes into ketosis much more easily than any animal, and this includes bears. We're simply meant to be fasting, and we'll always be healthier if we do it occasionally. Just make sure to get enough nutrition the rest of the time, i.e. when you are eating. Eat the nutritious animal products and skip the bread, sugar, and junk food. In fact, it's really the only way you can regenerate your internal organs, and one of the very few ways to raise your basal metabolic rate, which depends mostly on mitochondrial health. Women are usually interested in having good collagen production.
Uh-huh.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, you betcha, yeah.
Yeah.
It's also important to have elastin to avoid wrinkles, which becomes damaged from a high-carb diet. However, fasting is very important because it removes the damaged elastin, which causes the wrinkles in the first place. Then when you break a long fast, you create new collagen and elastin, and this helps firm up your skin. For those with loose skin, the skin shrinks, but at the same time, more collagen production means the skin also thickens. That's very important for skin health and also for looking good. Fasting is also important for bone health, which functions largely in the same manner. Weightlifting and a low-carb diet will also work very well here. Glycine is a very important molecule for collagen production, and I take 6 grams a day and recommend that everyone takes at least 3 grams a day, which is much less than what we would have gotten from our diets just 100 years ago. You may believe minerals are the important thing for bone health, but it's actually mostly made of collagen. And fasting, protein in the diet, phototherapy, and the supplement glycine are going to have really good results for the bones in your face. This is important because bones can become excessively large with age in some places, and they can also wither away in vital places that cause unfortunate problems, such as sunken, hollow eyes.
In 2001, age 43, take a look at the upper eyelid hollowing, and that goes back to what I was saying previously, where when she was younger, that was filled in and it looked more youthful. As we get older, there's that hollowing that occurs. And part of the reason why you get that hollowing isn't just because you lose some fat in that area. It's also because the bone is starting to resorb. Our bone health is the greatest at around age 25. And then as we get older, it starts to decline. And so the eye socket changes as well. So the underlying skeleton of our faces is changing with time as well.
Likewise, fasting will shrink and tighten tendons in the face as well, which could lessen the need for facelifts with age. We may want or even need plastic surgery sometimes, but it's better to lessen its use as much as possible, or you'll probably wind up with issues down the road. Anesthesia is also riskier than many people realize, and any use of it has the chance of leading to your demise or to cause brain damage. And recently, people have even died doing this while getting a tattoo, if you can believe it. One of the main issues with menopause is reduced collagen due to lack of estrogen and damaged forms of estrogen in the body.
My original skin's dead.
This issue is worsened many times over when there's liver damage present. Estradiol is the youthful form of estrogen, but estrone becomes the norm after menopause. Estrone is only about 1/10 as active as estradiol, and that means it is very difficult for the body to produce collagen, especially if this process is not running smoothly. When less than metabolically healthy, i.e., when the liver is not in perfect shape, which it's not for most people today, when it degrades into one of several useless or even dangerous forms, it cannot clean them up properly, so this impedes further production. Some of these are actually carcinogenic, and failure to remove them further damages the liver and creates more problems. And this can also happen in hormone replacement therapy, so you have to be aware you want to have your liver in good shape. But if the liver is functioning well, which can be achieved through fasting and lowering dietary carbs, and through certain supplements, this process will work optimally, and enough properly formed estrone will circulate the body and provide adequate ability to generate collagen, though perhaps still not at optimal levels. Fasting will help a great deal, but so will betaine anhydrous, aka trimethylglycine or TMG. This will help clear the liver fat and lends methyl groups the liver needs to detoxify chemicals in the body. Of course, hormone replacement therapy is what the medical industry will push, but it may not be absolutely necessary, especially if metabolic health, i.e. optimal liver health, is achieved. But keep in mind, 90% of people today are very far from achieving this. After all, for countless years, there was no such thing as hormone replacement therapy. While some have painted it as dangerous, it should be safe to do, as long as it is bioidentical and replaces the whole hormone range, and you are metabolically healthy. But keep in mind, if you don't have a healthy liver, to remove the excess or damaged estrogen, that can actually creep up even higher than it should, then you could get even more nasty side effects. Alternatively, DHEA is a pro-hormone that can help replace all the female hormones in the right ratios, but it's not as strong. This may be another option to consider, especially if medical insurance is lacking or else if the co-pays are just excessively expensive. If reasonable levels can be achieved through any of these means, collagen production issues and some of the other symptoms of menopause can be mitigated.
Should activate the psychograph.
Curves. Oh, baby. It's like living inside a bouncy castle.
The mistress is beautiful.
Absolument.
But there's still some other issues to deal with. After menopause, it's possible to get a decent level of estrogen by one of the means listed already, but there's one more problem: estrogen dominance. Progesterone also goes down, and that will lead to many of the worst symptoms of menopause. Fasting also helps here because it gets rid of many of the ineffective or even damaging forms of estrogen, and only the functional ones remain, and there will be a lot less total estrogen, but a lot more functionality to it. That will bring your ratio of estrogen to progesterone down, and this will help with some of the symptoms of menopause, and in fact, a lot of the very worst symptoms of menopause. Young women can also have this problem due to their lifestyle. Lots of carbs, lots of drinking, caffeine, poor sleep, obesity, and generally bad metabolic health will cause these issues even before menopause, and it will lead to a lot of symptoms like facial hair and all sorts of things that are just too terrible to mention. This is basically how PCOS arises, and fasting is going to help a great deal here by destroying the excess, damaged, or artificial estrogen from chemical exposure. This also applies to men who today often have way too much estrogen. On the other hand, fasting does not lower progesterone levels in women, so this brings the balance back to normal. While there's no study I could find to show fasting increasing progesterone in menopausal women, there is evidence it is a metabolic issue and that exercise helps. If exercise helps, then it's very likely that fasting will also help with this issue, and probably it'll help even more, but this is a long-term lifestyle change, not something that you're going to get from a single fast and then go back to eating a garbage diet and have the same problems.
Never give up. Never surrender.
Oh, shut up.
No. Never give up. Never surrender.
So in short, fasting may not be a magical cure for fertility, menopause, or thyroid issues, but it's only going to help. Just make sure you get plenty of real animal-based nutrition on the days that you do eat, and you should have no problem at all with fertility. Scaremongers will do everything they can to stop you from fasting, or to have an excuse not to do it themselves. As usual, this one turns out to be hot air. Fasting shows no signs of harming fertility, and in fact it can help a great deal with PCOS and many other hormonal issues by quickly getting rid of excess or damaged hormones, as well as chemical hormone analogs that can also cause issues. Due to healing the liver, it can also help a great deal with this process during the time that you're not actually fasting as well. Likewise, fasting regenerates the thyroid if needed, and fasting is shown to actually increase thyroid levels in those whose levels are low. In menopause, fasting balances the hormones and cycles out the damaged, cancer-causing forms of estrogen, which build up due to low estrogen turnover and low progesterone. This keeps estrogen in line with the now lower levels of progesterone, and if this is combined with a low-carb diet and made into a lifestyle, it should give great long-term relief from the bad symptoms of menopause. It will also make sure enough functional estrogen is present to properly make collagen in the body. There are also natural ways to boost your hormones, such as with DHEA and other supplements. Bilberry or quercetin should also help balance them a bit. Or just go to your doctor and get hormone replacement therapy. But beware, you can also get some side effects this way. Some of the supplements in the description will also help here. But at the same time, they're safe for men to take as well. And they're not going to have a huge effect. They're just going to allow you to get the healthy result that you should get on a healthy diet in nature. People ask me about iodine all the time, but I don't make videos about it because it's very dependent on your situation. But in the case of menopause, this is also an area where iodine may help. But as with other minerals, in general, supplementing is not only straightforward, and there's a lot of nuance, and there may be some trial and error needed. There's many reasons that people attack fasting. A lot of them are financial because fitness gurus don't like the competition for their business. which really doesn't work all that well for doing a lot of the things that they want you to think it does. Or they do it because of a plant-based bias that makes some vegans attack fasting and low carb. Or in your personal life, it can just be due to jealousy. When people see other people are doing well, they want to pull them down sometimes, and there's also a million other weird reasons like that. But I think a common reason is some people just attack anything that actually works, just so they don't have to take personal responsibility for their addictions and bad behavior. That way they don't actually have to do anything about it.
I think I have heat stroke.
You have lollygagger syndrome, that's what you have. Here, freshen this up for Daddy. Why?
Sure, I'll take another Fanta.